The three-point shot has quickly gone from an afterthought to one of the most common shots in the league today. In a matter of 5 seasons, we've gone from players averaging 5 threes a game at most, to 5 threes a game being near league average. And a big factor in the rapid change has been the rise of Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, who many would credit with changing the game with their style of play, which was unique at the time. But over the last couple seasons, we've also seen a handful of people saying that the recent explosion of three-pointers has been bad for the league.
So yeah, y'all play like I'm gonna be the old man, get off my lawn. Y'all sit there watching stupid ass basketball. Just jack up threes all night. If they go in, we win. We miss, they lose. Give me a break, you dumbass.
And while I do love making fun of old heads that just like to hate on the league and everything about it, they do kind of have a point. And today, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about the rise of the three-point era and what it's done to the game of basketball and fans' perceptions of the game. So let's get into the video. So real quick before we begin, only a small percentage of you guys that watch my videos are actually subscribed, so if you're watching this and you're not subbed, please hit that sub button, it really helps out a lot. Also be sure to leave a like, that also helps out a lot. The three-point shot has come such a long way since it was introduced in 1979. We've gone from the three-point shot for the most part being an afterthought to the point where we are now, where it's the main weapon of choice for all NBA teams. In the first season the three-pointer was introduced, teams only attempted 2.8 threes per game, and the number of attempts didn't even hit double digits until the 1994 season, when the NBA moved the three-point line from 23 feet 9 inches to 22 feet across the entire arc instead of just in the corners. And with this change, the number of attempts went from 9.9 to 15.3 in 1 year. Shortly after though, the NBA would change it back to the 23-9 distance that we're used to today, because their goal of making the three-point shot a more viable option for teams and smaller guards had been achieved. The average number of three-point attempts then remained stagnant for a considerable amount of time, staying between 15 and 20 attempts for the next decade. But then at the start of the 2010s, we see an increase of attempts, and cue the rise of Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. Because Steph always had the efficiency that we're used to seeing from him, it's just the attempts weren't there yet. As soon as he played more in the league, we began to see not only his volume of shots begin to go up, but his efficiency remained the same, despite the types of shots that he was taking. And in just a matter of a few seasons, he had become the league's best three-point shooter and teams started to catch on. And this was only amplified by Curry's historic 2016 MVP season, in which he made 402 three-pointers, which obliterated the previous record of 286. But also this season we began to see the emergence of the logo shot. Curry had always had this shot in his arsenal, but he just didn't take it as much. But this season we would see Steph making almost 55% of his threes from between 30 and 40 feet. And this, combined with the fact that he was playing alongside Klay Thompson, who some would argue is the second greatest shooter of all time, would be instrumental in getting the three-point era to the point where it is today, where we've seen teams go from 22 attempts a game to 35 attempts in just the 6-year span from Curry's first MVP season until now. And with this, we've also seen other stars in the league such as Damian Lillard and James Harden incorporate the three-pointer more and more into their games. And even centers have now adopted the three-point shot, to the point where we have guys like 7'3" Kristaps Porzingis taking threes from all the way out here. This would be unheard of just 10 or 15 years ago. In the 2000s, if you had a 7'3" player and he decided to take a 30-footer early in the shot clock, there's a good chance that they might not see the court again for the next 5 games. This is just the reality of the NBA right now. Which then brings me to the last play of the Nuggets and Wizards game that we just saw recently, where the Nuggets are down 2. They have a 4-on-1 situation, and absolutely 0 players cut to the rim. And with this, I can see why people say the three-pointer has been a detriment to the game of basketball. And while you can say that this was just a lapse in judgment by the Nuggets, you can also attribute some of the blame to the era that they're playing in. Because if this was 7 or 8 years ago, this never would have even happened. And this possession worries me a little bit about the future, because we've already seen plays like this before. Take this play from 2016 for example, where Draymond Green passes up a layup to kick out to Steph Curry for a corner 3 on a fast break.
You gotta make the layup, folks. Oh no! You gotta take the 2. You're guaranteed 2.
And while this play was stupid at the time, and to be honest is still stupid, it's not as dumb today as it was back then, simply because of how the game has changed in the last few seasons. But it is still something to keep in mind. But why exactly is this happening? Because we saw the small ball Houston Rockets just last season taking over 45 threes a game, and they struggled to even make it to the second round of the playoffs. And that's one thing that I've been thinking about. I did a chat on Locker Room the other day, and someone made this point that I thought was really interesting.
So you know the saying like three-point shooting team can win the championship, and then the Warriors won in 2015, and then they had their dynasty. But that question is still true because we all know if Kyrie Irving didn't get hurt, then the Cavs most likely win in 2015, and then they blew the 3-1 lead in 2016. So like a three-point shooting team can only win if you have Kevin Durant and Curry. Like,
oh.
But
like
then
that's
again, in
my main
2016,
thing. Like, yeah, they didn't win, like I'm saying. So like, can the jump shooting team win the championship unless you have three of the greatest shooters of all time?
Well,
And that's where my perception of this era changed a little bit. Because, I mean, he's right. Teams nowadays are trying to emulate the style the Warriors played, but at the same time, the only team that you can honestly say won a ring while playing like the Warriors was the Warriors. Because the Raptors, while they were a good three-point shooting team, they weren't great, and they only won because of specific circumstances. And the Lakers won while being awful on threes compared to the rest of the league. The Lakers in the 2020 season were 23rd in three-point attempts, and 21st in three-point percentage. History has proven that jump shooting teams fail to find success more often than not. And combine that with the point we're at today, where we have good shooters, but not necessarily great shooters, taking these types of shots. I mean, James Harden, who's a career 36% three-point shooter, has made a living off of the toughest shot possible in basketball, the step-back three. And he's a good shooter. He's not great, but he's good. But despite that, people have still been trying to emulate this type of shot, even though they shouldn't necessarily be taking that many. Luka Doncic immediately comes to mind, being just a 32% three-point shooter in his career, but still taking some of the hardest shots possible. And that's where I feel the guys that say the three-point era is ruining basketball sort of have a point. Because let's take a look back at the Charles Barkley clip that I showed towards the start of the video. But this time, let's also take a look at what he said before that.
A bad shooting, why you just keep shooting them all the time? Just because you hot tonight. But you just said it, they're the worst three-point shooting team in the NBA. Like, that doesn't make zero sense. That stat, zero.
We're the worst shooting in the NBA.
And we're gonna keep shooting.
No, and they don't have any bigs, so we're gonna actually shoot more tonight. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, listen, yeah, y'all play like I'm gonna be the old man, get off my lawn. Y'all sit there and watch this stupid ass basketball. Just jack up threes all night. If they go in, we win. We miss, they lose. Give me a break, you dumbass. Easy game.
And I mean, he's right. Why is a team that's 22nd in three-point percentage, top 10 in three-point attempts? Why is a career 32% three-point shooter taking 30-foot step-back threes? Why do you have a 7'3" player taking logo shots? These are the questions that I can't definitively answer, so I'll leave you with my best guess. Since the Warriors were so dominant at the three-point line for a few seasons, teams saw the potential and how deadly the shot can actually be. The Warriors would routinely go on runs with their incredible shooting, and all of a sudden, either they've turned a close game into a blowout, or they've erased a 25-point lead in a single quarter. So teams thought the only way to beat them was to beat them at their own game. And being a Warriors fan, I can say with confidence that a lot of the time, the only reason teams were able to beat Golden State throughout the dynasty was because they outshot them from three that game. So more and more teams caught on, and we got to the point where everybody is shooting threes against everyone, because that's one of the main things they've built their team around. And my opinion is just, I don't think that anybody will be able to recreate exactly what the Warriors were able to do, because their team was just so unique, especially with the way they were able to build it. Because one of the main factors that led to the dynasty was actually Steph Curry's early ankle injuries. If he never gets injured, he probably breaks out a lot sooner in his career, which means that they likely don't end up keeping the draft picks that they got, and they would have given him more money earlier in his career, which probably would have been the biggest factor. But anyway, enough about that. Here's the tough question. Is this style of play actually ruining the game of basketball? Because some fans think it's the most entertaining it's ever been, but for other fans, they feel that teams and players are taking far more threes than they have any business taking. And while I don't think that the style of play itself is necessarily ruining the game, it's definitely been a reason for why we have some of the problems that we do now, such as jumping into defenders on 3-point shots, and passing up layups for threes. But on the other hand, it's unlocked a level of basketball that we've never seen before. Jimmy High Roller recently made a video about the recent change to positionless basketball and how it's changed the NBA, and this was one clip that I thought perfectly described the situation that we're in right now.
Simply put, great players are taking more shots, they have the ball in their hands more often, and they get to make far more executive decisions on the court than ever before. Tune into any NBA game and you can see this happen right in front of your eyes. Instead of having a designated point guard bring the ball up, teams are just giving the ball to the best player regardless of their skill set and allowing them to dictate the flow of the game. Why on earth is Giannis Antetokounmpo bringing the ball up the court? Why are point guards now shooting the ball more than shooting guards are? Because no longer do players just play within their mold. If your best player is a 7-footer with no outside shooting, oh well, let him bring the ball up and go to work. Best player on the court is a 7-foot sluggish bruiser, oh well, the man can pass the ball like a point guard. So feed him the ball, drop the offensive sets, and let the man work. Best player is a 6-foot, 170-pound point guard. Forget the mid-range, forget the off-ball stuff. He's excellent at running the pick and roll and letting it fly from 30 feet out. So run the pick and roll and let that thing fly.
So from that perspective, I can see how it's been positive for the league, because we're currently watching possibly the most skilled collection of talent that we've probably ever seen in the NBA, and a collection of talent that will continue pushing the game forward. So I don't necessarily see it as a negative. But with all that being said, I want to know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with Charles Barkley that the 3-point era has been a negative for the NBA because of the types of shots that people are taking now? Or do you think it's been a positive because of the level of play we've been seeing from different players? Let me know what you think. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell to be notified when I upload, comment down below what you want to see next, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.